This is chapter 4-3. Please copy your cuts. Alright, now we're getting ready to define triangles by side, 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 or SSS, postulate number 19. And now I have a new updated screen. Can't find my buttons like I want. Anyway, moving forward, side, side, side congruence states if three sides of one triangle are congruent to three sides on another triangle or the second triangle, then they are congruent. Notice the if-then statements for conditional statements, the if and the then. If three sides on the first triangle are exactly congruent to three sides on the second triangle, then both of those two triangles will be congruent. For example, I have on this particular first triangle, triangle NMP, and it's supposed to be congruent, and I'll come over here and write it. Triangle NMP is to be congruent to triangle RQS. And remember that angles are supposed to correspond with one another. Okay? Looking at this carefully, that means the N corresponds to R, M corresponds to Q, P corresponds to X. Now, what this particular postulate number 19 is saying is that I'm talking actually about the sides opposed to the angles. So, I see one side is congruent on one triangle and it's congruent to the same exact side on another. For example, NM. NM is the same exact length as RQ. So let's say that NM was 10 units. That automatically means that RQ is also 10 units. Remember when we talked about this symbol here, when they have the same amount of tick marks or lines, that indicates that they are the same length, even if there is no number attached with that particular segment. So NM is congruent to NQ, or I can say MN is congruent to QR. Remember, you cannot say MN is congruent to RQ. Angle for angle, angle for angle. It must go in the exact same order. We've talked about that. So, for example, if I have side MN, I know it's congruent to QR. I do not say RQ. That's incorrect because Q corresponds to M, N corresponds to R. Also, so far I have one side that's congruent, 1, 1. Now I need two more sides for both of these triangles to be congruent to say these two triangles, NMP is congruent to RSQ. So I have proven, so far shown, I should say, that one side on each of these triangles are congruent. Let's look at the next. I have side NP, and I'm saying it's congruent to RS. And I know they're the same length because they both have the double tick marks or double line marks. Okay, and again, N corresponds to R, so I say NP where RS. And I label P second with S second because they're in the same position. Right, and finally the third side is PM is congruent to, and this should be SQ. So let me just fix that up while I have it here. So PM is congruent to SQ, and it should be in that exact order. Okay? Next thing's next. Since we've proven two sides, here's our NP and RS. Now I need a third side in order for me to be able to say that this is postulate number 19, which we don't call by number. Remember, we say side, side, side. And here's our third side that correspond to one another on the triangles. So that's the side, side, side. When I have three sides exactly the same length or measure on the second triangle as on the first, and they will be congruent by side, side, side congruence. Next, well, here's our statement here, our congruent statement, which I wrote at the top. Triangle MNP is congruent to triangle QRS. Moving on to postulate number 20. This is another way we can prove that two triangles are congruent. This time I'm going to say side, angle, side. And this particular one, that means I need a side, an angle, and then another side. Now watch this because a lot of people like to mix this up. it must go side. The angle must be in between the two sides. We're saying that they're congruent. Right? So when I have this particular side, I say PQ is supposed to be congruent to WX. Hello? Hey, Deej, I'm taping right now. Okay. Right. Okay. Okay. That's bye-bye. All right, y'all, that was DJ. All right, so side angle side, PQ corresponds to WX. Then the angle is in the middle. Angle Q corresponds to angle X. And then here's our second side. QS corresponds to XY. Here's how I would write that. Side PQ is congruent to WX. And again, P corresponds to W. And Q corresponds to X. And then my angle. Angle has to be in between the two sides. And then I have angle Q corresponds or is congruent to angle X. And finally, my second side, which is QS, corresponds to XY. If that's true, if I have a side and then an angle in the middle and another side, and it's congruent on the second triangle by side, and then that same angle in the middle, and then the second side, then I can say that these two triangles, triangle PQS, is congruent to triangle WXY. Again, P corresponds to W, Q corresponds to X, and then S corresponds to Y. So this goes side angle side. Now this is the tricky part that a lot of people say. Let's say that Q was not there and X was not there. And this, we were saying that P and W were written like this. Well, a lot of people say, oh, look at that. I see two sides and an angle. So these two must be congruent. No. This says angle, side, side. It must go in that exact order. It must go be the angle, the side, the angle must be in the middle, and then it must touch the next side. It cannot go angle, side, angle if we want to use side, angle, side. SAS in other words. Okay? So this is out. Another thing that people like to do is if it looks like this here, I'll take and move this one. Okay? Okay, and the question is this congruent by side angle side, SAS? Well, let's look. I have side. That angle, it must be this angle here that's congruent on both. Are these two angles congruent? Well, we don't know that because it doesn't indicate that. So because the angle is not in between the two sides, I cannot deem this side angle side. This is not there. This particular drawing says side, side, and then an angle follows it. Or if you want to go backwards, you can say angle, side, side. Okay, so it doesn't work that way. It has to be, as I stated before, if we're using SAS, it has to be side and then the angle in between the next side. And it does follow that, therefore use side angle side.